So let's talk about America and the welfare state that it actually is. You know, I read a lot of Jacobin magazine or just listen to a lot of lefty podcasts, or I've been indoctrinated into like lefty propaganda my whole life. And for a time, I really did believe this, that America is a ruthless capitalist laissez-faire system. It's like the wild, wild west, as if like just nothing but like robber barons and billionaires are just stomping on the masses, and America's nothing but just desolate wasteland of poor people that are like malnourished, food insecure, starving, and they paint this picture of like, well, we're so backwards here in America, so conservative, so Republican, capital R, that but then if you could just look across the pond, look at Europe, what a heaven it is. How, like, look at the Scandinavian countries, everybody's so well taken care of, everything's free, and they've gotten past this. They're civilized people. They've made progress. They're progressives. And that's the narrative, right? But then you have these articles from City Journal and other places that were kind of more shed some light and actually provide some real figures, because when you look at real numbers, you see that, oh shit, depending on how you count welfare, if I looked at a Wikipedia, like a supposedly a neutral Wikipedia entry on welfare in countries, on one list, America, depending how you, if you count it in one way, America's like number 12, like to spend like $9,000 per person, and then Scandinavia was like spend 12K. It's like almost there. And if you account for welfare in a different state, a different way, meaning you actually count the government welfare and the private welfare that's going, that's being redistributed from the economy, then America is the greatest welfare state there is, number one. And I got into this article. It's pretty really interesting. So this will dispel a ton of myths. So there's a study, World Inequality Lab at Paris School of Economics found the United States stands out as a country that redistributes the greatest fraction of national income to the bottom 50%. It's not the America welfare state traditional reputation. It seems to have come as a surprise to the left-leaning authors. How could it be so? So this is what I was confused about too. Now, yes, America's actual government spending of the GDP is less than Europe, but because Europe has a more of a private, a public pension, and America has a private pension. But then if you add up the private pensions that redistribute wealth, the economic wealth to the poor or to the retired or whatever, then America has the greatest wealth, or the biggest, as the dollar amount. So here we go. Government spending accounts for a smaller share of national income in the United States, 35%, than Europe, 47%. But rates of public spending on education, healthcare, and benefits for the poor and disabled are similar. The greater cost of government in Europe results largely from its spending 11% more national income on public pensions than the United States, which serves to crowd out private pensions at a higher earners would have provided for themselves. To finance these state pensions, Europe proposes payroll taxes, sales taxes at the rate twice as high as the United States. These additional taxes fall heavily on lower income groups, making government bigger while imposing higher costs on the poor. Wow, okay, that sheds a lot of light. Not to mention, I was looking at these statistics, and America's way richer. If you were to add like the United Kingdom as like one of the states, it'd be like second to poorest. And if you add Germany, it'd be still in the top bottom third of economic GDP. For a while, the cost was masked by the rebound of reunited economies in the immediate post-war era, but over time, expense of providing generous retirement benefits and comprehensive healthcare services to all ballooned, uh, titling the bulk of government spending towards the middle class entitlement and uh, eclipsing other spending priorities. France spends much larger share of their GDP, 13.6%, on public pensions than the United States, 7.1%, owing to a lower retirement age, 62 or 66, and disproportionately generous benefits for welfare seniors. Yet 69% of American seniors receive private retirement benefits. Incomes from private pensions, 5.3% of GDP, are much higher than Europe, 0.3%, and the median disposable income over 65 in the United States is 38,000, about 39,000, also much higher than in France, 23,000. So the study make much of the fact that income is more unequally distributed in the United States than Europe. The United States does not have a greater inequality because it has more poor people. However, it's because its non-poor earn much more. In 2017, after adjusting for differences in the cost of living, only 19% of Americans lived in households with disposable income less than 20K, compared with 22% in Germany, 27% in the United Kingdom, and 53% in Italy. Wow, Italy is pretty poor. By contrast, while 32% of Americans enjoy disposable income greater than 50K, only 12% of Germans, 12% of Britons, 4% of Italians did so. Americans live in households that are on average twice as large as those in Europe. Europeans. Oh, not households. I'm sorry, houses. But again, I don't know why they. See, I don't like this comparison, because America just like just a bigger country, has more space. So I guess it is true though. It does cost more money to build more of a house per square footage, but it depends. I mean, you could live in a much higher cost housing in a big city than you're out in the sticks. So I think it's comparing apples to oranges here. But anyway, rates of homelessness are also substantially lower in the United States than in France, Germany, or the UK. Only 3% of the U.S. population was undernourished in 2016, the same as in EU. Here it goes, this is important. The swelling of European welfare states mostly imposes additional costs on the with modest incomes rather than the rich, which has many fewer than the United States. While the richest 1% pay about 33% of their income in taxes in the US and 35% in Europe, residents with below average incomes pay much less tax in the US, 16%, rather than Europe, 28%. Yeah, so, and that's the thing. I mean, that's the dangerous part. That's the awful part about like Jacobin and all the socialists. All of their solutions is just one big government program that everybody has access to, or that's for everybody. And you're just thinking, why? Why would you help people, or why would you have the government provide for somebody that can provide for themselves? Because when people provide for themselves, it's their choice. When the government does it, it's inefficient and it loses. I mean, they would say that, oh yeah, the government's more efficient, but no. The United States has the highest levels of disposable income among the G7 countries for 9 out of 10 income that deciles. Such comparisons give the impression that the poorest decile is little better off in the United States than in Europe, but the U.S. relies heavily on in-kind benefits, which traditional income statistics don't count, to assist in the neediest citizens. In 2018, American families with children below the poverty line averaged post-tax earnings of 18K, in addition, which government programs provided an average of 20K in cash, food and housing benefits, along with 5K in child care services and 15K in healthcare benefits. That is crazy. So if you're poor, in the United States, the U.S. government will give you twice the amount. And they're not satisfied with that. They keep wanting to raise taxes and give even more. Government budget under single-payer healthcare system must be stretched to cover all, which typically leaves them short of funds for the costliest service. So in Britain, your health intervention that costs more than 40K per year of life saved. So if you need something that costs more than 40K, you're screwed. As a result, the sickest patients are often denied access to newly developed drugs or treated with outdated equipment when major surgery is required. Even when procedures are normally covered, a shortage of funds means that patients are regularly unable to make timely appointments with specialists for cancer care or forced to wait months for essential surgery. America's healthcare system is therefore remarkably progressive in its financing and ensuring better access to care. 58 million of low-income Americans covered by Medicaid in 2019 paid no premiums, deductibles, or co-insurance for health care services because insurance is generally comprehensive. Their share of household consumption dedicated to out-of-pocket medical expenses is lower in the United States than in most other developed nations. And in conclusion, the welfare state is facing the greatest struggles. The welfare states facing the greatest struggles are those that rely on single payer to finance all activities. The sovereign debt crisis in Portugal, Ireland, Italy, Greece, Spain were primarily due to the expansion of the public pensions that largely replaced private retirement finance. Maintaining broad access to essential healthcare services as medical capacities develop and citizens live further into old age is also likely to prove hardest for countries where the government is expected to provide these services to all. Government best help those who need when they limit benefits to them rather than trying to provide for entire society, an approach that requires everyone to pay higher taxes, including the poor. Yeah, I would also add critically that all these programs should be time limited. They shouldn't be multiple generations or people living indefinitely on welfare. It should be like 6 months to a year max. For one. And for two, stop giving just help if you must. Just target it to the poor. Stop trying to finance just to have basically run all the GDP through the government. You know it's going to suck. It's going to be horrible for the economy.